There's only one return, okay? And it ain't of the king, it's of the Jedi. Hello YouTubers, today I want to be finishing up my review of the Star Wars Trilogy with 1983's Return of the Jedi. Now, Return of the Jedi was made 3 years after The Empire Strikes Back, and it concludes George Lucas's original Star Wars trilogy. Because of the success of Empire Strikes Back, he had enough to make Return of the Jedi, but George Lucas ran into some trouble with fines regarding credits being after the film, so he left the Writers Guild, the Motion Picture Association, and the Directors Guild. And because of that, it affected his choices for hiring. He originally wanted Steven Spielberg to make Return of the Jedi. Now, Return of the Jedi is a great film, but it makes me wonder what a Steven Spielberg Return of the Jedi would have been like. However, he found a director in Richard Marquand, and Lawrence Kasdan again helped write the screenplay for this installment. And yeah, we were left with such a stunning second act, and this is a conclusion. It pretty much starts off right where the other one left off, in a way. It begins on Tatooine, and Lando's there, C-3PO and R2-D2 visit, and there's another bounty hunter introduced, which ends up being Princess Leia, and we finally see Jabba the Hutt. He's this huge slug. He's the gangster that's been after Han Solo throughout the entire trilogy. And we see Han Solo frozen in carbonite there. So Luke, later, after having a hologram delivered to Jabba the Hutt, he arrives, and it's a very different Luke Skywalker. He has a robe like Obi-Wan's, but it's darker. He has force powers. This Luke Skywalker is a Jedi. He's more experienced than he was in the previous two installments. You could tell that he learned a great deal. And I love this opening, the tone of it and everything. Now, there's two different songs they have. The original version had a song, and there's mostly puppets there and just different animatronics. The puppet couldn't move very well, but the song did sound very 80s and synthesizer. In the special edition, they added CGI characters, which wasn't too bad. You still have some of the animatronics and puppets, but it added more movement. And they have a song called Jedi Rocks. A lot of people don't like this add-on, but it doesn't bother me. There's a lot of add-ons, before I move on to the story, that don't bother me. There's only one towards the end that they did recently that is just unnecessary, but I'll get to that when I do. But yeah, you're introduced to Jabba the Hutt. There's a bounty hunter there. She tries to rescue Han Solo. It's Princess Leia. They get him out of carbonite. Jabba catches her, and she's in a slave outfit. Yes, the infamous bikini slave outfit of Princess Leia. There's probably a lot of younger boys who probably didn't have a thing for Princess Leia, and that probably changed with this film. Also, Luke Skywalker probably didn't seem that much of like a badass until this installment. So yeah, that's something for the two characters. This is going to be separate from the plot, but if you ever meet a woman who dresses like a stormtrooper or a Princess Leia bikini outfit, marry the one who wears a Princess Leia bikini outfit. If you don't believe me, ask Chuck Bortaski. And yeah, you get through that, and then there's a whole confrontation at Jabba's palace. It's on the move, and we see the Sarlacc pit. Another special edition change is that they added a beak. But I love this. It's exciting. The music by John Williams is so spot on, and they add a little bit more synthesizer to this as well, since it's in the 80s. But I love it. It's an exciting sequence. Boba Fett has an encounter. Leia kills Jabba the Hutt. Even R2-D2 gets some action saving C-3PO from Salacious Crumb, and it's a very exciting opening sequence. The pace really builds up, and I love the conversation Han and Luke have towards one another, where he's like, I used to live here, and Han's like, you're gonna die here, you know. Very funny. Still the same Han Solo, and it's almost a reunion, because in Empire Strikes Back, they were so separated that now seeing all of them finally together is so great. And on Tatooine, again, it doesn't introduce us to a new world, but in a way, this is a perfect full circle as a trilogy, that this one has a lot of parallels to A New Hope. And I like that, especially for a conclusion of a trilogy. And then we're introduced to the Rebels. Lando goes there. They go their separate ways. And Luke has to go visit Yoda, and Han and them are at the Rebel base, and it turns out they had Bothan spies, and the Empire is developing yet another secret weapon. Basically, a Death Star 2. It's incomplete, but they think it's not functional. So they have to lead a rebel assault on there, but there's a shield around it that is powered at a shield control room in the planet Endor, a forest planet with a whole bunch of primitive little beings called Ewoks. So Han Solo leads that mission with Princess Leia, and Lando is in charge of the troops. Back to Dagobah, we see Luke visit Yoda, and he's asking him, is it true that Vader's my father? And he's like, yes. And he's like, am I a Jedi? And Yoda says, once you confront Vader, then you're a Jedi. So it's in a very emotional scene because he dies from natural causes and he just disappears. And it's a sad scene. And again, Frank Oz doesn't, even though it's so brief compared to Empire Strikes Back, he gives another great performance as Yoda. And Richard Marquand, the director, really knows how to direct emotional scenes. There's so many scenes in this that are so emotional, and the timing and the acting and the direction, everything really makes the viewer feel something. Not only as a film by itself, but more so when you watch the trilogy in a row. There's a greater level of finality to it, and there's a lot of emotional weight put into this final adventure in the Star Wars trilogy. And yeah, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you have Alec Guinness reprise his role, and he's just like, Luke's like, you lied to me, and it's just like, what I told you is true from a certain point of view, that Vader did kill his father, it's just that Anakin wasn't himself. But he says that you had a sister, and Luke searches his feelings, and you find out in this installment there's a revelation that Princess Leia Organa, is the sister of Luke Skywalker. They're separated at birth, away from each other, to be protected from the Emperor. And that's just a startling revelation. And he ends up meeting up with Han and Leia at the Rebel base and goes along with them to the mission at Endor. And in a way, he feels like he endangered himself because the Empire is suspecting Luke Skywalker with them and that the Rebels are going to attack. So now you're introduced to Endor, and it's very interesting. It's a forest planet. Nothing too unique from the other two installments, but I still like the planet. It's something different we haven't seen in Star Wars. Even though you go back to Dagobah, you go back to Tatooine, there's another Death Star, you still have this planet called Endor, and you're introduced to Ewoks. Originally it's supposed to be Wookiees, and George Lucas pretty much said, wait, Chewie knows how to use stuff, that won't work. They're supposed to be primitive. And a lot of people give this movie flack for Ewoks. Sure, it's crazy how a whole bunch of little teddy bears can go defeat the Empire, but I like them. I don't have anything against the Ewoks, and it's nice seeing a different type of race in Star Wars. The main one's played by Warwick Davis. It was Kenny Baker, the actor who played R2-D2, but he got sick with something, so Warwick Davis took over at age 6. Yes, Willow. He's in so many roles, both Harry Potter and Star Wars, but I like the characters of the Ewoks, and we also get some exciting chase scenes. There's a speeder bike chase with Luke and Leia fighting some stormtroopers, some scout troopers from the Empire, and you get to see different stuff there. Now, the one thing I have with this film, they were dealing with that early blue screen technology, and even though it looks cool, you could tell it's in the 80s, you can see the lines around them, it still felt very primitive, so in a way, this film feels a little bit more dated than Star Wars or The Empire Strikes Back in that regard. But still, it's an incredible feat what they do with a mixture of models and just projection units and the actors on the speeders. I really love the chase, the pace of it and everything. And I like the stuff on Endor. Han Solo's not really given too much to do in this installment, but George Lucas did basically convince Harrison Ford to come back, so that was nice. There's some cool moments with him like where they're like needing to go sneak somewhere, and it's like, are you sure you got this? And Han Solo's like, hey, it's me. And just different stuff like that, and his interaction with the Ewoks is just hilarious. And yeah, the whole middle is interesting, but my main beef with the film is not with the Ewoks or Endor. I enjoy the film immensely. I watched this one a lot, probably more than the other two, but when it reaches Endor, the film begins to slow down. It has like this kind of a slow build-up at the beginning, but then a steady pace going on and on and on and on. And then Endor, even though it's interesting watching it, the film really slows down a bit. And not much happens. And that's one of my one beef with the film. But other than that, it goes by pretty well. Luke gets to show his force powers. The Ewoks think C-3PO is a god. And then he confronts Leia about them being siblings, and she can't believe it. And in a way, she kind of knew it was true all along. Han Solo thinks they're having a relationship. He doesn't know that they're brother and sister, so he gets the wrong idea. And there's some good scenes between Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill there as Luke and Leia. And originally, George Lucas added that in. There weren't supposed to be siblings. When it was supposed to go to 9 episodes in the original story plan, he was supposed to be finding his sister in the next trilogy. But he decided to end it all in this installment, so he made Leia Luke's sister. But you can tell definitely early on with some of the inconsistencies in the films and the prequels that that wasn't supposed to happen. But it does match up anyway. They are brother and sister, and that's something interesting. It works for this trilogy, but it's a lot stronger when you watch the prequel films, the prequel trilogy, and then have this one as a 6th one instead of the 3rd. It feels a lot more emotional when you know the backstory of how everything happened. Even though there may be some inconsistencies regarding Princess Leia's mother and everything. Luke then allows himself to be arrested by the Empire, and Vader basically obtains him at the Endor base there, and there's a great scene where they get to talk, and Luke's accepted the fact that he is Darth Vader's son, and he constructed a new lightsaber. He has that green lightsaber, and there's just great talk about there being good and Darth Vader still. Luke doesn't want to fight him, and great movement by the actor there, and then James Earl Jones' voice. You can feel the conflict within Darth Vader as a character. You know it's too late, but there's that level of, again, emotion. The scenes of emotion in this and different confrontations are just so well done in this film. I commend it. It's one of the best in the trilogy as far as the acting, and it's a strong scene. And that's when we get to the Death Star, and there's 2 different battles with them trying to destroy the shield generator. You have the Ewoks fighting the Empire, and I like that because George Lucas wanted to convey old technology versus new. And ultimately, we get to see the Emperor, played by Ian McDiarmid. He played him in the prequels, and yeah, he is an evil person. And I love the colors. It has a lot of color tones of blue, and the cinematography in this is excellent. There's a lot of great scenes. The rebels arrive, and it turns out it's a trap. The Death Star is fully functional, and there's this whole Imperial a fleet after them. Probably the best fight scene. Probably the best space fight out of the entire set of films. It's my favorite one in Return of the Jedi. There's some great model shots, and ILM really went all out. They went to different locations in the previous film. They showed how to do it in the original, but this one, they really go all out, fast-paced, inside the Death Star, crashing ships. Just everything is just done in this version. And it's nice seeing Lando fly the Millennium Falcon. And there's just so many good moments there, and then having that be done in juxtaposition with Endor, and then we get to the final climatic emotional conflict, Vader versus Luke Skywalker round 2, and that is such an emotional fight. It's a lot more physical, and Luke fares far better now that he's a trained Jedi, and the Emperor's trying to make him turn to the dark side. There's some great scenes there, where it's like, Obi-Wan has taught you well, and he's like, I'm not going to fight you, Father. I can feel the conflict within you. It's just like there is no conflict. Throws it. A lot of stunts. And then my favorite scene, which many films have tried to copy. You could tell Dark Knight Rises had that feeling. When Luke's hiding, Darth Vader's talking. It's like, it was wise of Obi-Wan to hide your sister from me. So, you have a twin sister. And he's just like, maybe if you won't turn to the dark side, then perhaps she will. And then Luke's just like, never! And then they fight, and John Williams' score of the finale is just so emotionally powerful here with the symphonic orchestra and some of the synthesizers. It is the most emotionally filled lightsaber fight, and my favorite. And Luke just goes over the edge and cuts Vader's hand off. And he looks at his robotic hand, and then Darth Vader, and that's when he realizes, hey, I'm becoming just like my father if I don't stop this. Emperor is glad that he's letting out all this rage to kill Vader. And Luke throws it, and he's just like, I'll never turn to the dark side. You failed, Your Highness. I'm a Jedi, like my father before me. And then Ian McDiarmid as Emperor's like, so be it, Jedi. Force lightnings him, and its stakes are high. The Death Star is there, the Rebel fleet is like losing. The Endor, they need to get the shield generator down. Pretty much, long story short, they get the shield generator down, they go in there, get to blow it up. But before that, that moment of choice where Darth Vader must decide whether or not to save his son Luke. And in the original version, it's so brilliant. The Emperor is taking delight that he's like basically killing Luke, and Luke's screaming, he's like, Father, please! And he's just like looking down and then looking down. Such a great scene. Now, in the new one, in 2011, it's the only change I really despise. He says, like, no, and then throws the Emperor. I don't know why they add that. In a way, I was like, well, it makes sense why he says no. I mean, I was wondering that myself, but then there's something about that scene being silent that you know exactly what's going through Vader's mind. And it's almost like a silent film where you don't need words to convey what he feels. You see it right there on screen, everything in the cinematography. And even though you could think of a logical way why he would say no, it's one of my most despised changes of the film, because in the original version of Return of the Jedi, everything is shown to you and conveyed on screen, and it works better when it's silent, when he just looks down, looks down, and then it's just like gets the Emperor's like shooting lightning everywhere, and then he throws him down the shaft. And it's so emotional because he saves his son, but it's even more emotional when you watch the complete saga and you see the backstory, and you're just like, yeah, throw that son of a bitch down there. And then Darth Vader's like all wheezy. And Luke tries to get him out. Death Star's going crazy, it's about to be blowing up. And that's when we have the unmasking. He's an old, crusty white guy. He's not James Earl Jones. But in the original version, he had eyebrows, and they redid that with lava. Since they did that, it would be he wouldn't have eyebrows being burnt by lava, so they corrected that with him having no eyebrows to match the prequels. And it's such an emotional scene of him basically telling Luke, tell your sister that you're right. And he dies. And that's how Darth Vader dies. You get to see the man he was under the mask, and it's just tragic. Also because Anakin was good. There is still good left in the man, and he basically stopped the ultimate evil to save his son. He sacrificed himself to save his son, and that was really quite noble. And he had a character arc as a main villain to becoming almost like the catalyst of them winning against the Empire. And Luke gets out of there, and they blow up the Empire. Great effects within the Death Star. That one shot was widescreen, and then Lando gets out, and then poof. And that last scene where Luke burns Darth Vader's body, he's just watching it there, the music. And the original version used a song called Yub Nub. And it was just the Ewoks. However, I like that song, but I like the new score that John Williams put in. And they added Naboo in the DVDs, but they pretty much had all the different cities throughout the Star Wars saga, throughout the Star Wars trilogy. Them cheering the Emperor statue falling down, and then it was to Endor, Luke seeing the ghosts. And I like it. You see Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda there. Now, in the new ones, they added Hayden Christensen, and now you could say, well, why did they do that? But at the same time, I'm like, that was the last time he was a Jedi, so he restored balance to the Force. And I really don't mind it. It makes sense. That's really the last time he was Anakin, so I really don't mind that change. It doesn't bother me that much. I actually quite like it. Because then if you watch it all together, like, who the hell's that old, crusty Anakin? He looks nothing like the guy in the prequels. So I can understand the hate for that change, but I like it. And then that brilliant scene where they're all meeting each other. You have Wedge Antilles there, Luke Skywalker, Leia, just all of them. And it ends with them in celebration, widescreen shot, and then that's how the Star Wars trilogy concludes. I love that. There's also another moment before where Han Solo's like, if Luke makes it back, I understand if you go with him. And she's like, it's not like that. He's my brother. And Han Solo has his face of like, what? Brilliant actor from Harrison Ford, and I'm glad he gets to have his happy ending. He gets to end up with Leia through his arc. Everybody just comes full circle in this trilogy, and it is the most perfect conclusion to any trilogy. I mean, it's such a satisfying film. With and without the special edition changes, it is a great way to end the Star Wars trilogy, and in many ways, I still want to think of it as the ending to the Star Wars saga. At least just the first 6. The new ones are great, but it's just sad that this ending had to be undermined in Force Awakens, but I really love how everything ended in Return of the Jedi. And it's such a perfect end to one of the greatest trilogies of all time. It's probably my favorite conclusion besides The Dark Knight Rises as far as it being consistent. So, Return of the Jedi, while it may not be as good as the first two, it still is a worthy film. And in many ways, even though it's not the best one, it is my favorite one. And I watch it. It has the highest rewatchability. So many great emotion, action, cinematography. It's just a crowd pleaser. It's a feel-good movie. So what do I give Return of the Jedi? I give Return of the Jedi a 4.5 out of 5, a 9 out of 10, and an A. Return of the Jedi is another return to form for the Star Wars trilogy, and is a brilliant conclusion. And it's nice that they got their happy ending and defeated the Empire. Now, there's been some theories that have been said in Clerks and Chasing Amy and some Kevin Smith films and other films about the whole Death Star thing and Darth Vader. But yeah, for those who have seen this, you wouldn't be watching this video if you haven't seen Return of the Jedi. If you haven't, go watch it. Don't watch this video. But if you have, you know how special it is. And there may be some pros and cons, but it still is an enjoyable conclusion. And yeah, a 4.5 out of 5, a 9 out of 10, and an A. Return of the Jedi is wonderful. And let me know in the comments below what are some of your favorite moments in Return of the Jedi, and what is your favorite Star Wars in the trilogy or Star Wars saga. That is it for my movie review segments of the Star Wars Trilogy in honor of Rogue One's recent release. I hope you enjoyed. If you liked this video, feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. Check out my other videos. And that does it for now. Until then, may the Force be with you.